This segment of Delmarva Life is brought to you by State Farm Insurance.
So we've talked about protecting yourself and your home, even how to clean up from the next big storm.
Yeah, it seems like we're covering all the bases. We've covered falling trees, water and fire damage, and even flying debris. But you're probably asking, what, if any of that, will your insurance policy cover?
And joining us today to help us better understand is Janine ODonnell, State Farm agent in Lewis. Janine, thank you for being here. So the first thing is it's a good idea to know our insurance policy and how it works. And there is such thing as a hurricane deductible.
You're right,
Explain
Brian.
what that's all about.
Actually, 3 different types of deductibles that your viewers need to be aware of. The first can be an actual wind-hail deductible that'll kick in anytime the wind blows, and that deductible can be between 1% and 5% of what the house is insured for, so it can be quite costly. The next level of deductible is your tropical storm deductible, and then finally, as you mentioned, that hurricane deductible.
Wow. And when does the hurricane deductible start and when does it end? That's important for people to know as well.
It really is, and again, it's important for them to check with their agent because every company can have a different definition. For the most part, that hurricane deductible will kick in once the National Weather Service issues a hurricane watch or warning for our area. And it could run as long as 72 hours after that watch or warning is lifted.
Good to know.
Now, earlier in the show, we talked about water damage, and this is something that I did not realize, and maybe our viewers don't either, that some insurance policies do not cover flooding, your standard insurance policy.
You're absolutely right, Lisa. There's no homeowner's policy that's going to cover flood damage, and that's why it's so important that you talk to your agent about the availability of the flood insurance that's available through the National Flood Insurance Program.
Okay, and there's different kinds of coverages just like everything else, your basic.
Exactly. You can choose amounts for your house as well as your contents, but it is important to know that there are several things like a finished basement, which a lot of people out there do have on Delmarva, that will not be covered by flood insurance.
Very interesting. So how do we know? How do we know if we should have flood insurance?
That's a great question too, and frankly my answer is everyone should consider it. There are 2 areas that you may live in. You may be in a preferred zone or a special flood hazard area, meaning a greater risk of flooding. However, as you've seen and we've seen clips, water can pile up anywhere. You don't necessarily have to be close to the ocean or a bay. It can be a creek. It can be, as Dan said, dry. You know, the ground's already saturated, right, and the water has no place to go.
All right, so there's actually a tool, I understand, that we can actually use to figure out how much we should put into our flood insurance?
Yeah, I think we're going to be able to see it here on the floodsmart.gov site, which we've talked about in previous shows. You can actually go on and show how many inches of water can do how much damage, and this is just very simple, looking at a 1,000 square foot home and looking at just a couple inches of water. In this case, you know, 6 inches, which doesn't sound like a lot. You see how high that comes up in your home, but look at the amount of damage that can happen.
I think that's one thing people probably underestimate, the damage Mother Nature can do.
Absolutely.
You see it all the time. When preparing for a storm, one thing we don't want to forget is a home inventory. Take us through what that is.
That's a great point. We say a picture's worth 1,000 words, and especially when you have a claim. So go through your house, take pictures, take video, and especially if you have things that some people may not have, collectibles, antiques, things of that nature. You want to take special care on those and then keep that documentation outside of the house. Give it to a friend or relative, safety deposit box, somewhere where it won't be damaged if your home is.
All right, and the other thing too we want to talk about is the flood insurance actually comes through the government.
Correct.
Is that correct? If you want to just explain that so people know.
Right, and no matter where you go, what agent that you speak to, the rate is standard, the coverage is standard, and that's mandated by the federal government.
All right, and the 2 zones again that we need to know about for flooding?
Special flood hazard area. In that area, an actual mortgage company, if you had a mortgage, would make you buy flood insurance. A preferred zone, they would not require that of you. However, again, like we've seen, flooding can happen anywhere.
It sure can. And you know, our home is probably one of our biggest investments in life,
Yes.
so we need to protect it
You're
from
absolutely
something
right.
as unpredictable as the weather. Thank you so much, Janine.
Thank you
Yes,
for
thank
having
you.
me
Good
back.
A lot of good information, not a problem. And if you'd like a link to the tool to find out what flooding would cost you, go to delmarvalife.com and click on the Show tab.
And from flooding in the home to the flickering of the lights. Did you know bad weather is also the #1 cause of power outages? Up next on Delmarva Life, when your lights go dark, these guys hit the road. A look at what it takes to get your home powered up again and what you can do to help them out.
Plus, when the power does go out, some people fire up a portable generator. A little bit later, the do's and don'ts when operating a generator and how you can have portable power on standby 24/7. We'll be right back.